ones are going to be, they are going to be full on deadline day. So throw them in the chat as we go. But as far as main roster people, I think the conclusive list is kind of out there so far. We don't know. There's probably going to be more as the maybe a couple more today, maybe a couple more tomorrow as well, maybe more before we get to Spotlight. But going off Fightful and their post that they've been updating through the day. The ones that we do know for certain, Mustafa Ali has been as he was one of the first to get to Twitter, wasn't he, to announce his release. Emma has been released. Aaliyah has been released. So all three of them announced them themselves. Fightful confirmed that Riddick Moss, Rick Boogs, Dolph Ziggler, Shelton Benjamin, and Elias have also been released. They're kind of the first names that have come through, as we say. Mason Mansour are the ones to add from NXT as well. Apparently, there's going to be even more cuts coming from the WWE PC, according to Fightful. Frustration among the roster, you can understand. That WWE just announced the 1.4 billion SmackDown deal and then cut talent. There's a couple of names actually the Fightful don't have here. We're under the impression the top dollar is gone, and that we think the entirety of that fucking stable that just like, you know, the Triple H Infinity Ring memes kind of wrote themselves over the years. But ever since Swerve left, I think Hit Row was always doomed. We think the entirety of Hit Row is gone. Obviously, Dana Brooke mentioned as well. And Aaliyah is the backstage interviewer who's gone. Let us know, chat, if there's any more names coming through, but they are coming through thick and fast. Although we do seem to be at the point, JP, where we've hit that little bit of a lull when it comes to the releases. But I don't know. Do we want to go through the names one by one? Who stands out for you out of that list? Any of those that we know of at this point surprise you?
I don't think there's none that surprised me at all. We expected cuts. Where are they going to make cuts? It's people who aren't like prominent parts of TV. I think that's always been the surprise about previous cuts. It's quite often it's been people who've actually been quite active, and you're like, well, hang on a minute, you're actually using them. It seems like a really sort of strange direction to go in. What's Ziggler been doing? What's Shelton Benjamin been doing? You know, that's not a surprise. Top Dollar has never shown any aptitude, and it's that. What does he do? That Treasures program or something like that. Like, what does that really mean at the end of the day? It doesn't have any kind of substance to it. So the people they've kind of gotten rid of are people who you have to wonder what value it had for them. They were always going to make some cuts. These ones feel like there's a lot of people in that performance center as well who aren't just going to do it. Like it is a kind of an issue. Like, in essence, if they're running it was always an easy thing for them to be able to trim back. And it sounds brutal, but you know, we've seen lots of these. I'm just slightly incredulous that Dolph Ziggler, as we have said so many times, how has he survived these for so long? Like, he really had, like, and you know, for them, like, what are they going to end up doing? It's whether or not we get the bigger names, and by that, does it mean like the kind of this carrying
Elias and Rick Boogs aren't big names for you?
No, see, this is the thing I wonder with, like, see, when I was thinking about these, like, you wonder, okay, where would they go? Where could they end up? Like, I could easily see Shelton Benjamin ending up in Japan and stuff like that. I think there's kind of a home there. For lots of them, I just keep thinking they might end up just leaving wrestling in a lot of cases, or they go to Impact. Like, if we're thinking of it in those terms. But there isn't anyone there who they've released, like on previous ones, like whether it be Malachi Black or even an Andrade, where you can see a potential and an upside. For a lot of the people they've released, I just don't see any real upside to them. So then it makes you wonder, why are they there in the first place?
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, it's one of them. Like, as much as we you know, me particularly, I have the reputation for being the food on table guy and for not having much sympathy for this. It does suck, like days like this. You know, it's not quite. We're not quite in the. You know, it's not the pandemic, and I think maybe as wrestling fans, we've got a little bit of a hangover from that, where it's like every release is the end of the world. Every release is a tragedy. Like when WWE released, and we say it every time these releases happened, when they did those releases during the pandemic, we were angry and we were vocal about it and we were disgusted by it because we were in a global pandemic and it was a list of people who can't find work elsewhere. There is, of course, the issue now where, like, you know, we're not in a pandemic and, you know, that's as much as it seems wrong that WWE are making money hand over fist, and this big major's going through, and there's all this this news to celebrate that we're going to get into, that they're doing this, and it does seem scummy. Like, it's not quite the same situation. It's a bloated roster. There's a lot of wrestlers there. We could all see it coming, and a lot of people on this list are pretty much people that it's like, yeah, I think you probably don't. You've had your run with WWE. The question's going to be, what are they leaving to? Is there a healthy indie scene? Well, outside of GCW, not really. AEW, we can get into like whether some of these names are going to get picked up by AEW, as the chat's kind of talking about here. That's pretty much a full plate. We know Tony Khan likes to collect toys, so it wouldn't shock me if a couple of these names get picked up. A couple of them I'm genuinely scared of. Maybe one of them, and as Platt says here, Mustafa Ali being the one I can go into in a minute, being the one that I actually think I would sign. But that's a bit, unlikely that, everyone's going to land there. Impact's pretty busy right now. New Japan's not really, in the market or has the money to take on these types of guys. It's still not as straightforward as there's plenty of places to work. Not everybody here is going to be okay. Not everybody here is going to land on their feet and end up in places that where you can look back and go like like a Matt Cardona put on Twitter today. I worked hard and there's money to be made. Well, yeah, that worked for you, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work for everyone else. Yeah, maybe ROH, maybe MLW. That's true. A lot of people probably end up in MLW as we go, but I would say of the names in this list so far, I would say the ones I would most likely expect to end up in AEW. Mustafa Ali's the one where I just think there's upside there. I don't think he's been necessarily damaged by WWE's booking of him has been terrible, but somehow I think the goodwill towards him and the good work and the fact that we can all see he's a really talented wrestler who, decent promo too, decent character, seems like a decent guy. We don't know these people, but he seems like a decent guy, good representative I think any company would kind of want. I think he's the one where if I was Tony Khan, I'd make an exception. I don't know where I'd find a space for him, but I think I'd find the space for him. I think his ceiling is quite high, I think. And WWE were never going to tap into that. And I think an AEW could. What I worry about is a Dolph Ziggler who, and his fucking idiot brothers already being on Twitter posting photoshops of the two of them with all the AEW belts, which did make me laugh, but it also isn't far from reality. Like, is it hard to imagine Tony Khan doing then when Christian came in? Like, oh, this is the big. I know I like Christian now, but it's like this is the biggest signing ever. I'm so excited. I know he was Tony Khan's personal favorite wrestler, but he definitely, it was a little bit overblown, all of that. But it worked out in the end. But could you see a Dolph Ziggler being that type? Because I absolutely could. I could see him going, oh, well, the Hollywood Hunks, the tag team, and instead of a fake Dolph Ziggler, I have the real one too, and I could put them against the Hardy Boys, or I could, have them stinking up Rampage or whatever. I think that one's also likely to go to AEW, but that's the one I don't support.
That won't lie. That's the one that scares me. As I'm going to actually make my backdrop that picture that the picture you just mentioned, Dolph Ziggler as well, because that feels like possibly the only way to go for this one, with me hopefully in between them, coming up at any moment on here. There we go.
It is a funny picture, to be fair.
It is a funny picture. Absolutely,
does anyone want to see it, though? Apparently, a lot of Americans in my mentions tonight want to see it. Apparently, Dolph Ziggler's great, and he's always been great, and he just needs a chance. 19 years later, I mean, I don't disagree. He was booked badly, but there comes a point where it's been 9 years now since you can really honestly have that conversation of oh yeah, he's a bit, he's overlooked and he should be pushed hard. He had when Big E was in his corner and he had the Money in the Bank thing, and he had AJ Lee as well in 2011 or whatever year it was. Okay, yeah, maybe then, but a decade removed from that, is the juice worth it? See, people have been going, oh, we'll have a great G1 run. Really, in 2023.
Do you really, in 2023, do you think Dolph Ziggler is seriously going to be no, I'm going to reinvent myself as the wrestler? No, not at all. The only place I could see him ending up, like you say, is AEW, and AEW don't need him. And I think this is the logic they have to have. If you look at, and we were quite reserved in our praise of recent slight booking changes, and there being kind of more of a focus on kind of storylines and sort of singles matches and a couple of feuds and the rest of it. You just sort of look at him and go, where does he fit in? Because part of the problem has been is when they've signed people, it's just convoluted the picture and made the booking disjointed. And Impact used to fall into this problem all the time when they could pick up anyone from WWE. So that's always my hesitancy. But I think fans, kind of like football fans, they like transfers. They like seeing this stuff. It's kind of exciting in its own way, and it creates a kind of a novelty. But really, do you actually actively want to see it? Is there storylines where you want to see Dolph Ziggler? Even Mustafa Ali, as good as he is as a wrestler, and I have to, because there's always been that thing. It's like Chad Gable, where you look at them and you go, there's real potential there. We're just not seeing it on this bigger stage for the most part in their kind of runs. And I know even Chad Gable's I've heard mentioned about tonight, which seems like the mental idea of anything if they got rid of him. And I don't think that is. I just think that's people.
No,
Bullshit.
I think when people have said Gable, I honestly think they mean the other one. I think they mean Stevenson. It's more likely he's going to get released to me. I agree with Connor, by the way. Like, if a Dolph Ziggler went away, that's the problem. You bring him into AEW, Tony Khan's going to slot him in a certain place that he doesn't belong in 2023. It's been a decade since he's been relevant. However, if he went to Impact and did the work, maybe it could be in a different way, a Matt Cardona situation where, like, at an Impact, maybe I could see him get a fresh coat of paint. Maybe I could see him like getting rejuvenated or something like that. He'd have to come up with something. We are getting additional names coming through. Baba Tunde, aka Dabba Kato, has been released. JP. Shanky has been released. Who, like, Connor jokes who is Shanky, but like anytime he came out, it was like, how is WWE employing this lad? Like, he's tall. And he's from a part of the world to try to appeal to, like, but like, you know, as we talked about with the NWA documentary, there's, you know, if you want to crack the Indian market, there's better men that you could go with that job. Apparently, yeah, Shanky's gone. There you go. They had him with they did have him teamed up with Jinder in NXT, as people have said. Ewan makes the point. Yeah, I remember Big Bill rejuvenated his career at Impact. Like, that's maybe I'm harsh on Dolph. I find it hard. I'm not going to bust out my top 5 good Dolph Ziggler matches from the last 10 years, but I do think people would struggle. I think people's memory of Dolph Ziggler being this super worker is colored by things that happened a very long time ago now and a ship that has long sailed. But I do think, yeah, maybe a Big Bill situation could happen.
Is it not based with him being the super worker stuff? The idea of him being a super worker is really, he was a very good worker at a time when they didn't really hire great workers. It was before the kind of indie signing spree and everything else, before the kind of rebirth of NXT and those kind of things. So therefore, there was the potential for him to be like that kind of wrestler that we liked on the indie. Yeah. However, now we have, and there's dime a dozen of them. Yeah. So he doesn't fit.
The world's moved on.
Impact is the kind of place where you can go to, but then we see it with like someone like Heath Slater or whatever. They go there, they do some Dango. Like, there are so many of these types of wrestlers there. And are they going to come in? Are they going to come in motivated as well? And I think that's the big thing about a lot of the people who end up getting released from WWE. And the reason why we don't see a lot of them a lot of the time, they don't make it, is if it's not WWE, they're not really motivated to do it because they've been to like the best place. Well, in their mind, what is the best place, the top of the industry you can get to. And now they're not in that company. So why work beneath it? I can't see Ziggler doing a Cody and working for relatively cheap on the indies so he can get that kind of credibility back up. And as you've said, there isn't like this indie scene that is really outside of places like that Northeast wrestling, which runs kind of big shows sporadically and brings in a load of ex-WWE talent.
And
where is the money? Yeah, he'd fit into that, but they're not like, they're kind of sporadic things. And really there isn't the money going around, and you imagine what he would end up charging for it as well. That's where I kind of come into it. But like, yeah,
to go. I mean, maybe he could go back to his comedy career as Chris Elliott says he has, what's like that exact same joke. And he is 43, as Andy says here. There is that too, and he does. He's a bump machine. He sells well, and that was, you've nailed it. That was unique at a time. A long time ago, but now there's a lot of wrestlers who could do that job for you, and he's gonna have to prove that one, he's motivated, as you say. Two, he can still go to that level. And three, that he offers something different that isn't just tribute act to himself from the WWE years. Either that, or yeah, as Simon says, a nondescript career in Yank stand-up comedy could happen. Another couple of names the chat mentioned before, but I've mentioned the full Mason Mansour. That one's confirmed via Fightful. Mansour's another one, a project who they used when they were in the Middle East a lot. Obviously, they had the ridiculous fashion gimmick that had disappeared from SmackDown at least 6 months ago now. Another couple you can't really be surprised at. Mace is another he could go to Bloodsport, as Liam said before with Dabba-Kato. Could revitalize his Raw Underground roots. Maybe he could do that.
Well, Shane's on the indies, isn't he, these days?
Or you could get back. What's the fucking? Yeah, there you go. That could work. Maybe you could get back together the the stable with Mustafa Ali was leading Retribution. Half the lads have been released at this point. You could do a big Retribution get together. Maybe. I think talking as a job lot, Rick Boogs and Elias. I'm surprised it's both of them because they can't do the same job. Idiot with a guitar. Vince probably just went, get rid of the knobhead with the guitar, and then Triple H went, which one? And he just went, I know both of them is the two.
This is the thing, I suppose, with it is there are people with I suspect bigger contracts who, like, say for example, like the Good Brothers, something along those lines, where they're on bigger money than a lot of these guys. I suppose Elias would be on good money just because of the pay-per-view appearances and the rest of it. You would have been signed to an extension at a point when they wanted to keep everyone there.
That's true.
Rick Boog, I mean, that's the other thing as well, is how, like, if this is a Nick Khan move, he looks at it as just dollar and cents, doesn't it? So is there anybody who's on main roster, big money, who's going to go? Because I think then it was one of the stories that I put, I was going to talk about tonight, is the fact that Sheamus's contract is running down. And is that the case that with people like that, who they still see some element of value, they're just going to let that run down and get it down to there? And I wonder with him, is he's going to be retiring soon, because I just think the injuries and stuff. But that's the more kind of saving face way. That's the way that kind of AEW do it. Like, it's just the end of their contract and you let them go, rather than kind of like actively releasing them as WWE are doing. But I wonder if there's anybody on kind of bigger money who might end up going. Now we've seen shocks in the past, like, I mean, as we remember with Bray Wyatt, for example, just being released, or Braun Strowman.
I think there'll be a random name like that, like an AJ Styles gets announced or something. Maybe not AJ, but like someone you're like, whoa, hang on, what? There's value in that person. Yeah, I mean, Commander Aziz has been released. That's come through in the last few moments. R.I.P. in peace, sweet.
Was he a bit shit?
It would probably he just stood behind Wuhan Nation, didn't he? So I'd expect him to be.
He was in a film that one of the young lads was watching, the main event film, which is
Apollo
set
Crews
in like NXT. Apollo Crews is in it, but no, that bloke, that Commander Aziz, he's in like the main event cage match. Keith Lee's got a role in it when he sings. He was also released as well on this.
Last lot. What else we got? Riddick Moss. Don't know if I've got any particular on him. He did a weird tweet where he said something like, "Oh, everyone thinks I didn't get a push since Triple H took over." I was like, was anyone talking about Riddick Moss? Did anybody have that opinion? Okay, whatever. Top Dollar, like we talked about, like Top Dollar's that's just funny. Like, we assume the rest of Hit Row are going to follow him out, but like, he's just a fucking idiot, isn't he? Like, when he got released the last time, like, it was just like, at the time I was like, I'm just counting the days for him to be released, because this is no way going to work on TV. He brought him back as far as the Triple H bring back everybody project went, and then he landed on his head in that dive, and that's literally the only notable thing he did on SmackDown, because the commentator, anytime he got out for a match since, the commentators would make fun of it. He was literally, for an act that's supposed to be cool and was cool when Swerve heralded it, the most cringe-worthy, just bad catchphrase, just lame shit. He always looked like his clothes didn't fit as well. He always looked like 2 sizes too small for him. And then you add on to the fact that when he's on, I know it's only Twitter, but when he's on Twitter and he's just saying the stupidest stuff about how, Hit Row are going to work because we can actually promo compared to the other people who've been called up. Just like, he's got an ego on him too, where it's like, again, you don't necessarily like to see people get sacked, but that one I did kind of laugh. I was just like, yep, because, you ain't good enough, and yeah, your mouth probably, what's the phrase, said things your ass couldn't catch. Like, that's that was the top dollar story. Like, and he should land nowhere. No indie promoter should be tempted to put him in there with the Acclaimed and do some kind of rap battle. Like, no, just let him be gone now. He's done. He's done. We don't need him anymore. Like, that's it. Top dollar's use is gone.
Yeah. Any ideas that Tony's got of like, oh, we can put him into like Mogul Embassy? No, you're not. Not fucking doing that in the slightest. That is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. But as you mentioned, the top dollar, yeah, he's just rubbish. Anything I saw of him, he was bad. So, like, I just think him being released is just like the kind of bare minimum you should do. It's like Southampton releasing Ali Dyer, isn't it? Like the guy who was like pretending to be George Weah's cousin.
Yeah, it's like that.
It's just like that. He's pretending to be a fucking wrestler. So, like, I don't see anything in that at all.
Well, it's funny. When he first came back to SmackDown, he still had this, like, he was still wearing his indie gear. I can't believe no one stopped him. Like, I think it literally set, was it, what did he go by? AJ Francis? I think he had that on all of his gear. Like, just like, that lad's an indie lad to the end. Or he'll just retire. He was one of the ones where it's like, yeah, you're not, unless Impact take a risk and bring in all of Hit Row, and it wouldn't shock me. Outside of that, autograph appearances and nothing else.
I don't think Impact under this kind of regime would do that. I think that they're just that bit smarter these days, like, because it depends on price, because they don't have the kind of budget to play with. But it depends on price along with, okay, like it might be a short-term run or something along those lines. So like the likes of a top dollar, I just don't see what they would remotely offer him. I don't think they offer anything that he can kind of actively improve upon as well, which is the thing with them. I mean, Impact making a play for, say, Mustafa Ali would be like, oh, okay, because they could somewhat fit him into the mix. Like, I think that is the kind of thing where I do wonder with some of them. And Impact does feel like the home because they're always going to look for the thing of what is potentially going to break through and garner that bit kind of steamrolling, which one of them, at some point, they just think the law of averages dictates that one of these releases will kind of really improve upon themselves, and they'll be the company that kind of has them at that point in time, and they'll be the one to kind of bring out the kind of real potential. But I think even today I was reading that Mustafa Ali's like 37 as well. So then there's...
That surprised me, that, because he doesn't look it. He doesn't wrestle like it either, to be fair to him.
No, not at all. And he's had good... But I mean, for him, Japan's an interesting one but I never think New Japan. I end up thinking Noah. Noah would do something wacky and bring in like the odd person from here, but you just don't really have a clue of who they're bringing. We'll talk about them later on.
There's notes here, Eddie Sarburns putting in the chat, apparently, Robert saying that producer cuts are coming, so we could get some of that. Well, whatever. We're getting to the end of the American workday, so I feel like if anything else is coming today, it's gonna come while we're on air. Dana Brooke came through while we were on air. It doesn't shock me. I think I've half forgotten she works there. No, Steph's a big fan. She's gutted about that one, but her time was probably a few years ago. Speaking of Japan, JP, Shelton Benjamin, like I haven't mentioned him before yet. Like we said earlier, like look, I'm not blind and I'm not stupid. Like the hate business, like I think we said it on the podcast. They had a bit of momentum. It was a cool group, and the MVP and Lashley probably carried it, but the other lads there did kind of, Cedric kind of did carry the I don't know, the stable side of it and played their part. They just weren't a very important part, and like, while everybody would constantly wish for them to be put back together, like, it was more just, I don't know, like a rebellious, like, annoyed that Vince took them apart, like, with no real justification than anything. I don't think it was actually because anybody in the year 2023 wanted to see Shelton Benjamin matches. I think the people who are saying they do are lying, and they're just basing it on the fact that he was very impressive in his first couple of years with WWE and has dined off that anytime since. Because, like you said earlier, like was he? It's a myth that he was ever any good in Japan, at least based on the Shelton ex Benjamin stuff I was fucking forced to watch from New Japan during the glory years when he really stood out as shit. I've seen him on the Indies a couple of times, and he shit's the wrong word, just going through the motions, bang average. Like, you're not getting him coming out. Like, people in my mentions will bring, because somebody pointed this out, and it's a very accurate point. Like, it's like the Regal thing. When people want to defend like a Shelton Benjamin, because they know they probably can't, they write to cage match and they start listing. They go, well, he was great in Checks notes. Ring of Honor. It's like, no, we fucking wasn't. Like, they were terrible. World's Greatest Tag Team were awful. 2010 to 2013 in the Cornette era ROH. Like, they felt like they fit, but they really fucking didn't. And like I say, the New Japan stuff when he was in Suzuki-gun, like, I thought that was some of the worst stuff, like, on the shows. He was always one of the more bang average wrestlers on those cards. Again, not bad, just bang average and uninteresting.
Global force, mate.
The bits of nowhere I saw weren't great, you know. And then he's been back in WWE since 2017. I mean, I'm not gonna cry tears over him getting. Yes, he hasn't been used to like the best of his ability. Yes, the hair business got cut off of the knees, but like, there's no tragedy in Shelton Benjamin at this point in his career not getting more.
He's had a tremendous run. Like, you can't keep on hold of everyone forever. That's just not how how business works generally. And I know that these cuts,
like sports works,
given the price, they don't need to make these cuts, but they're trying to like push it and get on the day as well that we're going to talk about. They've signed a 1.4 billion TV deal for SmackDown.
But that's the thing, though, isn't it? It's like, it's not even just a business point of view. Like, name a big football club. I suppose Man City's not a great example because they do hoard players. But like, they could have anyone they want. They could afford more players. But at a point, you've got to start releasing people because you're either not using them or, you know, you want to make space to put other people in. It's like, there's going to be there's office cuts and real people who are losing their jobs over these next couple of days, and that really sucks. But yeah, Shelton Benjamin going is it and I'm going to cry about. Carlito could be one. He came in and hasn't been used since he's been re-signed. Whoever Ulisa Leon has been released. Andy Ryan says here, yeah, Shelton Benjamin will do well at conventions and signings. He'll be back at PCW again, which is one of the promotions I saw him at during his hiatus from WWE. Yeah. Any of the NXT names surprise you, JP, or anything you're expecting? Do we even know who half of the NXT people are? Have you ever seen Shanky before? Do you even know what he looks like?
No, I've seen pictures of him, and I just looked at the look and thought, no, because for me, after the OVW documentary, if you're pushing your big, it's Mahabali Shira or no one, really. That's where I am with that as well. But no, I think it, you know, like Quincy Elliott, for example, I saw once, and I just thought they're going to look at this as, could they be main roster? And you look at Quincy Elliott and go, no, not at all. Like, there isn't anything particularly special and not particularly like good wrestling wise. Like, so I think with that, there isn't like anyone to be kind of necessarily excited. Like a Dana Brooke, I look at and just think she will leave wrestling now. There are other things that she'll be able to do. And at some point they'll bring her back for random guest appearances now and then. And she'll probably end up being quite happy with that and figure, on this run, I worked for this company and I earned probably in total over $1 million. Like, Jesus, that's not a reason to feel upset. Like, she'll be mortgage free. Like, trust me, I would happily like.
And after people kicking off about this, won't be, you know? No. You're not. Why are you crying about the strange? That's Ulisa Leon, by the way, on the screen, JP. Ring any bells?
Is it?
Modern day NXT.
It is. And you look at a lot of modern day NXT and you think, who are the people who stand out? And they're the ones like you know, and they're not even that great, I suppose, but like your Carmelo Hayes and your Ilya Dragunov. Start getting rid of those, you'd be thinking that's a bit weird because they're people who are featured on. How many of these people being released are in integral parts of TV, and you need to have them around for storylines to work? And it feels like none of them. So this isn't something you look at this and this is a culling, but it feels quite targeted, and it isn't as random as previous ones. But there is scope for me to completely change and backtrack on that statement as we come there. But yeah, at this point, I should be changing the backdrop really to a picture of the Performance Center when he stood there waiting for somebody to stick a dildo in my ear.
So releases are still coming. We seem to be down to the NXT people, maybe some producers. We'll keep everyone updated as we go.
Fingers crossed for Darren.
Darren from HR, could he be next? Him or Gabe Stevenson? Like, I think I can be forgiven for letting out a cheer, but we'll see. We'll see what names we get as we go, JP. But yeah, outside